Randstad India Talent Pod presents Mind Matters.
Welcome to Randstad India Talent Pod presents Mind Matters. My name is Neerja, and in this series, we are uncovering various aspects of mental health and trying to understand how best to tackle some of the challenges we go through in life, right? Now, this particular episode is dedicated to a very pertinent but perhaps less talked about issue: leadership burnout. Now, when you are in a high pressure position as a CXO, holding a lot of responsibility, it comes with a lot of stress as well, and that can't be easy on the mind. To give us a more in-depth understanding into this, we have a very special guest on the show today. Joining us is Anshul Raj Khurana from Booking Holdings, who is a strong voice in the leadership, recruiting and entrepreneurship space. Let's go right ahead and get into this conversation. Hi Anshul, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Neerja, for having me. I'm really excited and really appreciate you getting this topic on the table, because not often, we are talking about well-being of folks who are at the leadership position, by the way. So really excited about this. So just to give you a bit of a background about me, I'm nearly 18 plus years of experience, coming with a background of working in the talent acquisition space. Now, talent acquisition is a space where, you really work with every business leader, every domain on the ground, understand their nitty-gritties, understand their objectives, and really enable them to hire the best people for themselves. And that means, you are really in thick of things with the leaders, understand their vulnerability, that why do they want to hire the person as quickly as they need to. So I think that's where I am coming from.
That's perfect. We have some insider insight into this, and let's get started. Anshul, why do you think managing your well-being when you're in a leadership position especially is crucial?
I don't think so. It's crucial, Neerja. I think it's paramount, I would say. Because as leaders, we are responsible not just for the business objectives, but for the mental health for the people around us as well. So it's an oxygen mask for yourself as well, as they say in the aircraft, right? So you need to wear your oxygen mask first before you start helping others. So until as a leader, I am not, managing my well-being properly, how do you think I should be able to manage my team members or people around me properly? So I think it's paramount to make sure that, a well-being of a leader is really important for himself or herself.
That makes a lot of sense, and you drew a perfect analogy as well. You've got to take care of yourselves, especially when you're handling teams and teams of people that you need to take care of as well, right? So just coming to some of the specifics, Anshul, what do you think are some of the day-to-day challenges leaders face that weigh down on their mental health?
I think a lot of things, if you ask me, Neerja, but if I just talk about top 2 or top 3, the first thing is the change management. When I say change management, as a leaders, you really want to manage a change from top and communicate it down. Now, when I say from top and down, I'm not talking predominantly from a hierarchy standpoint, but from a communication matrix standpoint. Of course, every leader has the leaders on the top, right? Building that whole rapport with people around you to really manage that change is really important for people to kind of make sure that those challenges are getting addressed properly. That's number one. Number 2 is about expectations, right?
Yeah.
There are business expectations, right? There are stakeholders' expectations. And then there is an expectation from your own team as well. How do you manage the balance between those two expectations and find the right balance in between and strive forward that execution of KPIs and also manage the well-being of people? And I think number 3 is about managing the emotional motivation of people. With all what is going on in the market about people either are getting laid off or people either are getting on garden leaves, there is always a bit of a fear everybody has, irrespective, how well they are doing.
Yeah.
Right? So how do you kind of deal with all these 2 to 3 things, right? So I think change management, managing the expectations, and then managing the overall well-being and the growth of the people around you are the top 3 challenges a leader face on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like a lot of things to juggle. And especially when you said every leader has a leader, that's a lot of pressure that trickles down as well, right?
Absolutely.
That's very well put, Anshul. And just to go back to when you said, you've got to put on your own oxygen mask first before putting it on for someone else. Leaders have a tendency to do this, right? Often putting the needs of the business ahead of their own. So what do you think are some of the things they can do to first help themselves before setting their minds on the task at hand?
That's a great question, Nisha. I think first thing first is if as a leader, if I just talk about myself for a minute, right? If as a leader, I need help, I should ask for help. Sometimes as a leader, we feel we don't ask for help enough. Now, that could be not just with my leaders, that could be from my peers, by the way. I think that's an important aspect. Number two is really having a bird's eye view of something sometimes. I think as leaders, we really beat ourselves too much that it has to be completely perfect and we need to make sure that everybody is happy with us. We can't keep everyone happy. So I think we just need to prioritize whom we can keep happy and whom we can't, and then manage it out that if we are not able to keep some people happy, how do we manage that change management? That's an important aspect of it for a leader to really kind of pre-visualize certain aspects, that what can be done well and what cannot be done well, and communicate it proactively.
Yeah, Anshul, I'm compelled to ask you a follow-up question. Being in a leadership position yourself, do you think it's easy to ask for help?
Oh, it's very tough to ask for help, actually.
Yeah.
It's absolutely not easy because two things happen. One, if I ask for help, I may presume or assume that somebody can perceive that I'm not a capable leader.
Right.
Number two is, whom should I ask for help, right? Should I ask for a help from my leader upwards, or should I ask for a help from a peer? So I think these are the two important questions as a leader people generally ask from themselves.
That is so true. And how would you even go about answering these two questions?
I think that's an interesting one. I think one needs to be brutally honest with themselves, first of all. Yeah, there shouldn't be any kind of a deniability around it. I need help, as simple as that. If I don't ask for help right now, then somebody has to come and offer the help later, which I have to take otherwise, right? So it has to be more proactive. And I personally feel when a leader is proactively asking for help, people around them really respect that approach, because they know that, okay, this is more of a proactive way of solving a problem, which may happen later, which others may not be able to see right now.
That's so true. And also, as a leader, you want to be proactive and not reactive. So that sets the expectation as well. Anshul, they say it gets lonely at the top. We've heard it many times. How can you create a support system when you're in a position of power and, you don't really feel like you can trust or lean on anyone?
Very tricky question, Nisha, honestly. I think I wouldn't want to agree to the word lonely. But I think I understand the context of that word and of that question for sure, because at a leadership level, for sure, you'll not be able to kind of share information. For sure, you can't express yourself in a vulnerable way. But at the same time, I think each leader can build that ecosystem for himself or herself if they want to, right? I'll give you an example. I always have industry mentors with me. Now, that doesn't mean that I need to share business information with them, but I can share what I am going through as an individual with them and actually take their guidance. Number one. Number two is I can have a similar kind of a network in my organization as well. There's no harm in having those mentors and coaches. And I'm not talking about bosses, by the way. I'm talking about coaches and mentors.
Right.
And number three is how often we invest in our own leadership development. How often we systematically invest in it, by the way. I'm not talking about those generic, manager essential programs, which, organizations run. Of course, I'm sure they're good, but they are designed for a larger cohort and very generic in nature. How often do we do a 360 for ourselves and then start working and taking action on them, by the way? So while it's lonely, I would say it's very purposeful and purpose fulfilling role as well. And sometimes when you actually are at a larger purpose, I think being lonely is part of the package.
That's understandable because you're gaining something and you may feel like you're losing something. But like you rightly said, if you surround yourself with people who have maybe also been in similar positions, right, there's a lot to be gained in terms of support. Anshul, something that I'm sure, I mean, you have to tell me if you relate to this, but I hear a lot of people in leadership positions cite lack of time as an excuse for not really tending to their minds. We all do it.
You're absolutely right.
And especially those at the top, who have a busy schedule, how can they keep a check on their mental health?
I think lack of time, I personally feel, is a counterintuitive way of justifying that it's not their priority. We all have time for the priorities we have in our daily life, right? So if mental health is a priority, people will get time. If that is not the priority, of course, people will not get time. So I think if we keep that in the center stage and then, align our day around it, it's easy. Otherwise, it's not. I remember I was, listening to one podcast of Yuval Noah Harari. I think he's that writer from Homo Sapiens. He said he always, irrespective of any kind of a busy schedule, he always have 1 hour dedicated for meditation. Right now, so he says he blocks that time and he blocks other things after that.
It just has to be written into your schedule. I think that applies to all of us. Something to take away from that for sure. Now, there is a lot of exhaustion, I would say, that comes with, being a leader. And it can lead to mental fatigue as well. Physical exhaustion, of course, can lead to mental fatigue. How do you think CXOs can find a way out of feeling bound by work? And I say bound because you somehow, I think after you reach a position, feel obligated to get things done. So when does a break come in?
Interesting one, Neerja. I think it's very individually driven, to be very honest. I think as a leader, as we are responsible for business objectives, KPIs, team development, team growth, I think we are similarly responsible for our own self as well. I think there are some design patterns what a leaders I've seen doing and can do as well is look at what they do beyond work as well. Beyond work could be a hobby, beyond work could be a fitness regime, beyond work could be, involved in some kind of a community work or anything. I think what happens is it's very beautifully defined what we have to do 9 to 5, but it is not defined what is to be done 5 to 9.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just talking very analogically. So I think it is very much needed for a leader to really know what he needs to do beyond work as well. Now, I don't think so. Family comes as a part of choice. Family for sure is a part of responsibility, but what is to be done beyond that as well? Like I'll take my example. I really love doing gardening or making bonsais. I make sure that I take some time out to do that. Photography, I make sure I take some time out. I'm sure I struggle a lot in that too. But once a month, can I do it? So I think it really is important for us to really make sure that there has to be some kind of a intuitive play beyond work to really find out that balance back to work.
Yeah, I think you've brought up a very key phrase, beyond work. That's so important. And sometimes you lose sight of that because beyond work also becomes about work sometimes. And that's definitely something to consider when you would like to unwind and focus on yourself. Anshul, it's been such an insightful conversation and a topic that can be explored further and further. One final question before I let you go. What is something you hope people who are listening to this particular episode take away from this conversation we've had?
Personally, I feel, Neerja, this should be a priority number 1 for all of us. Our own oxygen mask, our own mental well-being should be a P1 for us. It can't be a good to have. It needs to be a must have for all of us. If it is not, then I think it's a work to do for all of us as leaders.
Absolutely. Well said, Anshul. Thank you so much for bringing your perspective on Mind Matters. It's definitely been a wonderful time chatting with you, and we hope to have you back sometime again soon.
Love it, Neerja. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
That brings us to the end of another episode. I really hope this one made you think, made you feel, because the fact is that no matter who you are, what you do, or where you come from, matters relating to the mind can be a difficult thing to deal with. My thanks once again to Anshul for joining us on the show. We will catch you on another episode of Randstad India Talent Pod presents Mind Matters. Until then, it's me, your host Neerja, signing off. Bye-bye.
Randstad India Talent Pod presents Mind Matters.